Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Come gather round the footlights, lads, and hear the old boards groan. A tale of ink and iron will, of voices overblown. From mics and scripts to painted sails, we've traded shore for sea. The players will man the rigging soon. Aye, all hands, follow me. From Long John shadowed silver grin to Jim with compass true, we speak the words, we wear the scars, we make the old world new. No gold without the work behind, no legend without sweat. A stage, a ship, a single breath, the course is not set yet. We players say to KLRN Radio, setting sail for Treasure Island, March 2026!
Shut the lights down in the city, say the system's on the ropes, while the same hands that broke it hold your paycheck and your hopes. They'll sell your sweat for silver, call your sacrifice relief, but every drop of truth we bleed writes another line of belief. Freedom isn't free, it's carved in blood and fire and stone. It's the price of stand tall when they tell you to kneel and go home. They can lock up every promise, tax the air we breathe, but they'll never chain the hearts of those who still believe. 'Cause freedom isn't free. They preach peace from marble towers while they fence off your front yard. They wave a flag made out of rules and call obedience smart. They'll brand your voice as danger, they'll mock your
coffee tastes like bad decisions I ain't made yet. Boss man talking about we got her, and that means me, brother. Afraid I got a terminal case of the I don't want us. Mind checked out, heart ain't in the building. That second hand's crawling like it hates my guts. The man treating rest like it's a sin. Even God took a beat. So suck it. Thank God it's Friday, punching out loud. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and the bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, 'cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait. It ain't owning me. So raise 'em up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know. HR in the break room sounding like a preacher, talking about culture smiles and being team players. Clipboard dreams on the fluorescent light, selling hours of my life just to make it to Friday night. Got dirt on my jeans, and grease on my hands, clock more over than quality plans. But when that bell rings, it's a holy sound. Feel like chains hit the floor when it echoes around. I ain't lazy, I just work my fill. If rest is a sin, guess I always will. Thank God it's Friday, punching out live. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, 'cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait. It ain't on me. So raise 'em up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know. Boss can have Monday, God on Sunday, but Friday night's mine. I ain't giving it away. I earned this beer, I earned this pay, earned every sip I'm about to take. Thank God it's Friday, punching out alive. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, 'cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait. It ain't on me. So raise 'em up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know.
Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, they've moved some of the studio stuff around on me, so I'm trying to get adjusted here. Anyway, so we're back. We're live. I hope everybody's had a great week so far. For those of you working for the weekend, you are nearly there. Want to remind you, the KLR Radio Players Band has a new song out, available almost everywhere. I haven't put it on the YouTube channel yet, but I'm working on it. And that is Forged in Fire. That's one of the newest ones that's been released. But we actually are starting to release the work because, why not? Even if it's pennies is pennies. Anyway, wanted to take a quick moment to say hello to the folks hanging out in the chat. Be aware we are multi-streaming to 2 different YouTube channels, so if the trolls get out of hand, I will start muting and blocking them, just so everybody knows. But we are trying to build our presence because YouTube has much more reliable statistics, and I can use those numbers to go to sponsors and go, hey, look, see how we're doing? This is why you should hand us money. So I can stop saying, please, those who listen to us, may we have some more? Anyway, so we're here, we're live. I hope everybody's having an awesome day. I see BZ is in the chat, and you never plagued my show. Yeah, although I guess you've been around about as long as the plague. So, oh wait, is that the first time I've ever made an old joke with you? I think it might be. So yeah, this should just be warned. It means I'm getting more comfortable with you, so I'm liable to be even more of a smartass than what you're used to, which is terrifying to some. So that's why I'm giving you a heads up. Anyway, so we're here, we're live. Hang on, I'm trying to figure out. See, I don't like it when I do that. Every time I have the chat open now, there it goes. Okay, so yeah, that was sorry. I was being annoyed by something. But anyway. Anyway, BZ's trolling me in the chat. I don't need YouTube trolls. I have BZ. All right, so plenty of things to talk about today, but I have a bit of a rant that's been brewing now for a while, and it was solidified last night. So last night, while I'm on the air, I saw a story come across, and I know I missed it, but I was out running errands before. But I saw a story come across that the House finally got off their ass and tried to reopen the shut down portion of the government, and the Senate said no. Ladies and gentlemen, whether we like the fact that we are involved in conflict right now, we are actively and openly involved in conflict right now. There will be time later to point fingers or clap backs depending on whether this works or not. This is not the time. With as many people that the previous administration let flood through our borders, the fact that Homeland Security is working without a budget right now, and now technically kind of sort of without a leader, which I'm going to get to today too. I know a lot of folks are happy that Nome is gone or has been laterally moved, which I think put a lot of egg on reporters' faces yesterday, because even Fox News was running, oh, she's been fired. No, she got reassigned. Now, did they make up the position to go put her in the corner? I'll let you guys decide that. But look, the simple fact of the matter is DHS Barbie was always DHS Barbie, and it left a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth, other than Corey Lewandowski. Oh, wait, did I say it too soon? Too soon? Too soon? But look, here's the thing. This, in my opinion, and it is just my opinion, so take it and do with it as you wish, was the wrong time to hand the Democrats a scalp, regardless of the circumstances. And I know there was testimony that she gave the other day that kind of painted Trump in a corner, and all Trump's people were like, see, she said you approved this, and you were okay with this, and did you know about this? And we know how, when people get in Trump's ear, how that usually goes. So, am I surprised by it? Yeah, not really. Do I think he probably should have went with somebody else from the beginning? Yes, most definitely, but I'm not president of the United States. And I'm sorry, to me, again, all you did was embolden the left. You saw Jeffries just yesterday, as soon as the announcement was made. Yay, we got Nome gone. Bondi's next. So how much harder is it going to be now to get Mullen approved and appointed? Now, I know usually in the Senate, they play nicely with one another. Not always, but usually. Yeah, I was going to get to that in a minute, Raptor. But yeah, thanks for putting that reminder back up on screen. Because, yeah, that's the other thing that really grinds my gears. But we'll get to that in a minute. It's just, this was the wrong time, in my opinion. One, we are at war. We can call it whatever we want, but I don't have a problem with calling it a war because Iran declared war on us first in 1979. And they never stopped declaring war on us. We may have been afraid to recognize it. We may have been afraid up until now to face it. We may have been afraid up until now to prosecute it as an actual war, but the regime that came into power in 1979 in Iran has been at war with us from the moment they came into power. And I'm glad that an administration and even some folks from former administrations are finally starting to admit that. One of the things that I liked seeing yesterday was Condoleezza Rice coming out and saying the quiet part out loud, which is the fact that in the grand scheme of things, Iran has been at war with us for 47 years. There aren't very many people outside of this administration that are willing to admit that fact. Seeing Condoleezza Rice willing to do it, especially with as hard as the Bush family has been on the Trump family, I'm kind of okay with that. I really am. Because it was a pleasant surprise. All right. So the next gripe I have regarding Congress is after hearing all of them screaming and yelling about how the American people deserve the truth about the Epstein files. And I'm not saying that they don't, but I'm saying, as somebody who's dealt with investigations, most of you, and please do not take this as an insult because I promise it's not, most of you wouldn't really understand what you're seeing there anyway, which is why you have so many people on the left going, oh my God, he mentions Trump in email 36,000 times. Obviously, he's been to the island. But you know what? There's no evidence. There's evidence he's been on the plane. He's in the flight logs, but there's no evidence that he's ever been to the island. There are no Donald Trump hot tub pictures like there are with Bill Clinton. Speaking of which, Earl mentioned this yesterday. I think it was yesterday during his show. And I didn't see this, but Billy Boy cheesing like he's reminiscing while the attorney's showing him the pictures. I'm like, this is not a good look for you, Mr. Former President Bill Clinton. It's just not. But BZ's still trying to figure out how come he never gets credit for sharing. I really don't know, dude. I thought it was tied to phone, but sometimes it doesn't even show up for me when I do it, so I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, look, I don't, as far as Congress is concerned, I don't want to hear anything about the Epstein files ever again, because you guys just voted to cover up your own little dirty secret slush fund that isn't so secret that everybody knows about, but you didn't want the information released for that, but you're willing to throw anybody else that you possibly can under the bus in the hopes that you take out the sitting president in the process. Just saying. I mean, I haven't actually counted Raptor, but I know he's in the emails a lot. But what a lot of people don't understand is in most of those chains, they're probably cussing him. Because let's not forget, Donald Trump was the one who removed him from Mar-a-Lago. An issue somewhere else. I don't know what just happened, but we winked out for a second, so I hope everybody can still see me. I have some high winds going on today, so we may have some intermittent connections, but we'll see. Okay, so I guess the chat's gonna be dumb for a minute, so let me take that off the screen for now. You guys chat amongst yourselves for a while till it starts populating again, and then I'll bring it back up. All right, so let's see what else we've got going on. All right, so the February jobs report is out, and of course, it's sending everybody into a bit of a tizzy, but let's see what we can figure out. This is from our friends over at Red State. This is from Susie Moore, and I will be putting it out on my X feed here in just a moment, so everybody can follow along later if they choose to. And let's see, I think that's this one. Part of it is there's tons of X logos now, and half the time I'm like, which one does what again? Anyway. So that's now out on my X feed for anybody who wants to check it out later. But the February jobs report has, of course, missed expectations. But there is a lot more to the story, because there usually is. The U.S. economy lost jobs in February, a month marred by severe winter weather and a strike at a major healthcare provider. So there's the part that nobody's talking about in their monstrous headlines, that non-farm payrolls fell by $92,000 for the month, compared with the estimate of for 50,000, and below the downwardly revised January total of 126,000 jobs. February marked the third time in the past 5 months that payrolls declined, following a sharp revision showing a drop of 17,000 in December. At the same time, the unemployment rate edged higher to 4.4% as jobs declined across key areas. A broader measure of unemployment that includes discouraged workers and those holding part-time positions for economic reasons moved lower to 7.9, or 0.2 percentage points below the January level. So, average hourly earnings increased 0.4% for the month, and 3.8% from a year ago, both 1 percentage points above forecast. So, yeah, it's a rough headline for the jobs report, but there's also all kinds of underlying data that can explain a lot of it. So 92,000 jobs lost in February was a big miss from the 59,000 expected. December and January revised to 69,000 lower than previously reported, but data shows foreign-born workers have lost 519,000 jobs over the last year, while native-born workers have gained 128,000 jobs. Additionally, federal government employees decreased by 10,000 in February and is down by 330,000, or 11%, since reaching a peak in October of 2024. There are a handful of things that may have distorted February's data. Winter storms could explain a lot of the weakness in construction, for example, and nursing strikes might have dragged on healthcare, said Elisa Ausenbaugh, the head of investment strategy at JP Morgan Wealth Management. Still, the pace of job gains over the last few months is still dramatically slower than it was in 2024 and also much of 2025. This is going to make it harder for the Fed to sell the labor market stabilization narrative that has been used to justify patience on further rate cuts. Add higher oil prices given conflict in the Middle East and renewed tariff uncertainty to the convoluted jobs market story, and you have a tricky, stagflationary mix of risks in the backdrop for the Fed, according to Osbaugh. Now, this is, let me get this pulled up on the screen. Hang on. Sorry, I thought I had this ready to go already, and I did not. But here's the actual audio-video discussion of said topic, so you don't have to keep listening to me reading through talking points.
What's going to happen, right, is that the variability in the data will be apparent to folks. And so what's going to happen, I think, is that there'll be some anxiety that another number like this or two or three numbers like this is ahead for us. But we really don't believe that because, as you and I have discussed, like every other indicator is consistent with very strong GDP growth right now. And so this really is an outlier number.
And he's not wrong because, again, the data shows that we're losing jobs. But what's happening is we have more and more people that were working, most likely illegally, that are being removed from our employment rolls. So I'm sorry not to mirror my chat that's going on in here, but I agree. I don't... Hang on, let me turn off. The damn demo came back on again. All right, there we go. All right, so now that we have things populating again, I'll bring the chats over in case anybody wants to communicate from all the various streams that we're currently on right now. Don't tell Restream, but when I did an upgrade to be able to do the whole multi-view thing, they bumped me up to one of the packages with the most streaming points possible. So shh, don't tell them. Don't tell them. So, yeah, again, part of what's hurting the numbers and making everybody panic is, as BZ just pointed out, yet another way that our illegal invaders are currently hurting the country because it makes our job reports look worse. And the thing, and they know this, They know this. Not really with you guys. But most of America just reads the headline and then goes into Chicken Little mode. They don't go into the data and go, oh, well, see, part of the reason the numbers are lower is because less illegals are working, which is why every month they record less illegals working. You'll notice the wages keep creeping up because they can't pay people what they were paying them before. And that's the dirty little secret from the Republican side, too, until recently. They wanted the illegal labor, too. A lot of them still do. That's why they're still fighting. You want to know why the SAVE Act is not going anywhere? There, right there. That's why. It's not about the voting. It's about, do you guys realize how much easier it's going to be to figure out who's here illegally if they're able to go through the rules that they had before and go, why didn't this person update their voting information? Oh, probably because they're here illegally. Hey, ICE, fetch. Good boy. So, and I hadn't gotten to that point yet. I didn't think anybody was ready to hear it. But you know what? Today's, and I don't really, thanks to Andrew, today's episodes is sponsored by the letters I, D, A, G, and F, because I'm to that point. Yeah, BZ, it's never changed. The Democrats want the vote. The Republicans want the cheap labor. And that's the truth of it, because that keeps housing prices lower, because who usually works in construction? And please don't do it's because white boys won't. No, it's because white boys were basically being forced to go to college. You know how I know? I was one of those kids. And when I decided to drop out of college, I got thrown out. Because I told them college isn't for me. I don't enjoy learning that way. I didn't enjoy learning that way in school, which is why, even though I probably could have gotten, they didn't do the whole the honors courses until high school for me. So my overall GPA probably, if I really applied myself, would have probably been about a 4.0. But it wasn't, because I didn't care. So I coasted with a 2.1. Because I didn't care. To make that sound as terrible as you want, but that's one of the reasons why I've never liked the cookie cutter approach to education. But the problem with the cookie cutter approach to education is it does exactly what it's designed to do. It makes people smart enough to do menial labor, not really intelligent enough for the most part to ask themselves why they're constantly doing menial labor instead of going out and doing things on their own. Because folks like me that like to start things and build things and try to see how big we can build them, etc., especially if we don't already have a silver spoon shoved up our butt to fund it, are very rare, unfortunately. And BZ, first of all, you are smart. I don't know very many people that use the word autodidact in a sentence that didn't claim stupidity. But yeah, so BZ in the chat, I stuck college out because it was an excuse to get more jobs, make more money, pay for my books, pay rent, and make people think I was smart. Yeah, I think there was probably some tail chasing going on that you're leaving out of that edited thing, sir. Just saying. Not judging you for it, but just pointing out that I'm pretty sure there's some tail chasing going on that we're not discussing. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm free. I will freely admit such, but I don't think I am. All right, so we're gonna get ready to take the first break of the show. Gives me a chance to cross promote a little bit more while we're playing some music. Luckily for you guys, most of the internal breaks now are music related, so you don't really get inundated with very many ads. But we are going to take that break really quick. My name is Rick Robinson. You are listening to the Friday edition of The Rick Robinson Show, and we'll be right back after a little bit of music. Stay tuned. Oh, by the way, this one's the shout out to all of our first responders. We'll be right back.
in, somebody answers. Day or night, they're already moving. Calm voices, fast hands, doing the work while the rest of the world freezes. From a headset to a truck, from a badge to a door, they don't stop to count the cost. They step in when it matters. It's not about being seen, it's about being there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Before the sirens fade, before the scene is clear, someone's already making sense of the moment. Keeping people alive, keeping things from getting worse. Some run toward danger, some stay behind and hold it together. Different roles, same weight, same promise to show up. When everything's on the line, they're already there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. This is service, this is sacrifice, this is how lives are saved. No spotlight, no applause, just showing up again and again. They're holding the line when the world goes dark. When everything's breaking, they hold their ground. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line. So we raise our voices for the ones who stand. Every voice, every badge, every helping hand. They don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Always standing in the gap for us all. For those who run and for those who hold steady, for those who stand in the gap.
And welcome back into the Friday edition of the Rick Robinson Show, live right here on KLRnradio.com. Again, we do this thing every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at noon Eastern, usually ending at around 2. The reason we don't do a Tuesday, Thursday show is because I'm normally hanging out in SHR Media's YouTube channel chat room, listening to Big E from Mission Ready Men Briefing. And you should be doing that too. Also want to give a quick shout out to the rest of our SHR friends, most of whom we simulcast. Some we haven't started that yet, and some opted not to. But one of them is BZ, who's hanging out in my chat room right now, host of BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, which airs every, well, let me change that, because he uses a very specific sentence, on select Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. So that's 8 in the Pacific. And then also, of course, Sean, or as I call him, the Boston Bastage, who is Mondays and Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern and is usually on our network, preceded by me in one form or the other. I also have been made aware that BZ is now planning on at least occasionally, if not more regularly, expanding to a potential Sunday night show from time to time. So I know that's happening, so we'll be carrying that one too. As far as for me, here in just a little bit, I will be back once I take a short break for the Weekend News Roundup at 3 p.m. Eastern, then back later tonight for He Said, She Said with the lovely Aggie Rican. Since we are streaming on YouTube in a different format lately and to a channel that I haven't put any content to in a while because I've decided to start streaming to my personal YouTube channel again. If you're finding us there and we're new to you and you like what we're doing, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. I know people hear subscription, they start panicking. If you're finding us on X, make sure you're hitting the follow button. If you're finding us on Rumble, hit this subscribe button as well. And also, we're streaming on both the KLRN Radio and my personal Facebook page. So wherever you're finding us today, please make sure that you are saying hello. Please make sure that you are following, subscribing, whatever options you have available. All right, so okay. So you thought my rant was probably done, huh? No, we're moving on to the next phase of the rant, which is the military aspect. Look, I get it. Everybody's like, Trump ran on no new foreign wars. The problem is, a lot of you that listened to that line didn't realize that he kept trying to tell you over and over and over again that Iran was not a new foreign war. Iran was a war that we ourselves were basically choosing not to face that we were in, which is bad in so many different ways. And it really is. It's a terrible thing. Well, in most states, you can't get alcohol on Sunday unless you go to a bar. So I guess it's fitting. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, look, again, this is not a new war. And for everybody, because trust me, now that we're streaming on YouTube more often, I hear it all the time. Not so much on the day shift, but on the night shift, when I open up the portrait feeds, he said he wasn't going to do this. No, he actually said the exact opposite. He said the same thing that I know of, that's been caught on record since he was 34. Iran can never, under any circumstances, be allowed to get a nuclear weapon. And we've done everything across the gambit to try to get them to stop. Limited strikes to say, no, you've gone too far, so we're going to stop you, or at least slow you down. And then they go right back to trying again. Then we take the Western approach and try to throw money at it. And they take the money and they laugh, and then they use the money that we give them to fund their terror proxies. So technically, as far as the rest of the world is concerned, their hands are clean, even though we know it's them funding it. And they have had us over a proverbial barrel since 1979 when we didn't thump their nose when we had the chance. Because again, we're talking about the difference between Western civilization and Middle Eastern civilization. They recognize strength overall. That's why you still have the 93-year-old fossil screaming for fatwas, even though I'm pretty sure he doesn't have anybody to do a fatwa with anymore. Because he's projecting strength. It doesn't matter that he can't do a damn thing that he says he wants done, because they really have no command and control left to speak of, which is why they're just throwing missiles at everybody and hoping that we're going to get the blame for it, and that people start attacking us instead of them, because they have done a pretty good job of convincing half the country that we bombed a school. Yeah. But that's all right, because unlike you guys, I tend to block and mute the trolls almost as soon as they start posting, because I just want the extra exposure to bring in people that actually want to listen to the show. So yeah, I started kicking trolls last night because I was like, you know what? I don't really care. You're gone. You're gone. You're gone. To the send bin with you. Anyway, but look, now is not the time to be having the arguments that we're having in the open. Take those arguments behind closed doors. Stop having them in front of cameras. Stop having them to try to prove points. There's no reason that the leader of what's the phrase that I'm looking for? Sorry, my brain just went into vacuum lock mode. There's a specific phrase that I'm looking for. Anyways, I'm just going to call him out by name. There's no fucking reason why Hakeem Jeffries should be going out on camera and saying, well, it's only a matter of time till we lose. That's basically what he said. There's no reason. None. Once the fighting starts, you take the public bickering behind closed doors. That is how it has always been done up until now. Even when Barack Obama was doing crazy, crazy shit, most of the arguments that the Republicans had with that stuff were had publicly after it was over, not in the middle of it. The only one that I know of that was different was Benghazi, but that was over within a few hours, and nobody could understand what was happening because apparently Barack Obama was either asleep or off partying with fucking Jay-Z and didn't do his job. Hillary Clinton didn't do her job. So that one was different because that was over before it started. Nobody knew what was happening. We had people that were stranded, that were screaming for help. And for the first time that I know of in my lifetime, we left people to die on purpose. And then they tried to blame a dude with a cartoon YouTube video for starting the entire mess. Now look, if this works, there will be plenty of people clapping each other on the back for decades to come. If it doesn't work, that's when we do the postmortem and figure out where we went wrong. Because if there was a historical point where we could do what it is that we're trying to do, now would be that time. Look, I've said it before. Yes, I've wanted this done since the 80s. But historically, I can look back and go, the 80s might not have been the best time to do it. The 90s might not have necessarily been the best time to do it. Now, why Obama didn't do something about it, when I know there were forward commanders in Iraq that were telling that administration that almost all of the attacks they were facing were either funded or supplied weapons from Iran, and then Obama decided to throw cash at them instead, and then talk tough like, well, if they agree with everything and they do what they're supposed to do, we'll give them even more money. Never anything about taking it back if they don't. And then the world, of course, weighs it, well, it's technically their money anyway. It's only been frozen because of terrorism. And the other thing about this being a new war, anybody want to tell me when we declared the war on terror over? Anybody? Bueller? Because as far as I know, we ain't never declared an end to the war on terror. Operation Iraqi Freedom, all the individual operations that were around the premise and the auspice of the war on terror. Of course, we declared victory. In one instance, I think we declared it a little too early. Looking at you, President Bush. But did we ever once say, hey, we vanquished all the terrorists, our war on terror is over? I don't think anybody ever said that. So here's the thing that I love, because this is the part that nobody wants to talk about. If Congress has the ability to declare a war, once the majority of Congress critters start talking about something as it's the war on something, the war on poverty, the war on drugs, the war on terror, once they're all using those talking points on TV, doesn't that technically mean they've already declared war on whatever it is they're talking about when they say the war on something? It's not our fault that President Trump is the first president to take the war on terror and the war on drugs quite literally and actually try to do something about both of them. You just can't. Sorry, I saw crickets in the chat and I thought somebody was trying to say that I wasn't transmitting anymore, so I got nervous. Anyway, well, I mean, yes, you're right, Stephen. Technically, you cannot wage war on a concept. It can't be done. But it doesn't really matter because I'm just saying, with as pedantic as everybody's being about it, if I were the president of the United States, I'm like, look, you guys declared war on terror in 2001. I'm just still fighting the war on terror. So I'm just saying. And yes, you're right, BZ. Every public argument about and given by Republicans, especially, let's just call them out, Thomas Massey and Rand Paul, will be amplified and used until the cows come home by Hakeem Jeffries, our esteemed goat humper in Congress. I can't with these people anymore. And the thing about it is, the thing that's driving me crazy is we are absolutely just light years ahead of where anybody thought we would be if we ever tried to do this. And now we're getting buy-in from surrounding territories. The leaders of the surrounding territories have started declaring Iran's proxy groups illegal and started the process to try to round them up. Now, as far as I think for Lebanon, I think that was more of a tactical move, maybe trying to keep Israel out. It didn't work, though. So, all right. So, this is interesting. So, this actually just came out a little bit ago, and I've been I skimmed it a little bit on the break. And again, about to put it out on my personal X feed. So, hang on. So the story of a betrayal is actually starting to be uncovered. So this is from our friends at Red State. And this is by Bonchi. Does being a European ally of America even mean anything anymore? And I'm reading from the article. That's a valid question after several NATO nations not only initially denied the use of their military bases during Operation Epic Fury, the ongoing attack on Iran, but also offered tacit support. Okay. Find your duct tape. I don't need any exploding heads on keyboards and phones today. But they offered tacit support for the Islamic regime. Perhaps the most public betrayal came from Spain, whose left-wing prime minister claimed the United States was violating international law. And hang on, there's a clip on here. I'm trying to get it queued up. Unfortunately, I think you'll have to read the subtitles, so I apologize kind of sort of in advance, but I'm going to play this anyway.
Hoy, más que nunca, es imprescindible recordar que se puede estar contra un régimen odioso, como está el conjunto de la sociedad española, como es el régimen iraní, y estar a la vez en contra de una intervención militar injustificada, peligrosa y fuera de la legalidad internacional. Que se debe estar contra una guerra iniciada sin autorización del Congreso de Estados Unidos, del Consejo de Seguridad de Naciones Unidas y, como he dicho antes, que vulnera el derecho internacional. Y que siempre hay espacio para una solución negociada, en lugar de dejarse arrastrar por la devastación de las armas como única salida posible. Por eso me gustaría de nuevo, como hemos hecho desde el principio, apelar a la desescalada inmediata, al pleno respeto al derecho internacional en todos los conflictos que estamos, por desgracia, y la urgencia de retomar el diálogo cuanto antes. Ahí es donde va a estar España y ahí es donde yo creo que debe estar el conjunto de la Unión Europea.
Okay, so in case you're wondering, and for those of you that couldn't read the subtitles on the screen, basically that was, I think it was the Prime Minister of Spain, if I remember correctly, basically saying that we're violating international law, blah, 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 and that, they can't support us because, they can and do oppose the Iranian regime, but at the same time, this is an illegal, unjustified war because war wasn't declared by Congress. Nobody from the UN Security Council gave us the go-ahead to be able to do it. And just ad nauseum, all the usual platitudes and talking points that you would be used to hearing right now. So give me just a second while I work on something here. Okay, so I have a response for the Prime Minister of Spain, and I'm going to give it to him in his own language. Pedazo de mierda. Nosotros somos la ley internacional. In other words, we are the law, bitch. Shut the fuck up. We set up international law. We did it. And I'm sorry to go Judge Dredd, but I am tired of these people because Iran has been skirting international law for 47 years, and you impotent pieces of shit have done absolutely nothing about it but him and haw and wring your hands. And again, as a Gen Xer, I remember this stuff. Now, granted, I was a little young, so I remember hearing about it secondhand and thirdhand from my older friends. But I remember this crap. I remember what we went through. I remember the shock and the horror and the terror on my family's faces when they were watching this stuff unfold in real time on TV. So every single one of you that have either sat on your hands or wrung your hands and, well, Iran's too tough of a target, we can't do that. Really? Do you realize that the reason their usual approach of a death of 1,000 cuts is not working is because up until now, they have done a little feint or a jab here and there, and we have paused, which has then allowed them to shift targets and go elsewhere, which is exactly an unarmed vessel that was part of a war games exercise. No, we didn't. We sunk a warship. We sunk an enemy combatant ship. And for all you people that are screaming and yelling about how the submarine violated international law because they didn't stop and rescue people, international law and law of war recognizes the fact that submarines have limited capacity to offer medical assistance and or house prisoners of war. This is what I'm saying. People cherry pick their arguments all the time. If you want to have an honest, open discussion about the War Powers Act and whether it should even be a thing, I'm willing to do that with you. But this idea that the president can't do anything militarily without the approval of Congress, that would make Congress the commander-in-chief. And that's the last fucking thing we need, is those 535 ADH-riddled squirrels running all over the place saying what we should or shouldn't do when it comes to conflict. You know, if we really want to start separating out the separation of powers again, we have to start sending actual human beings back to Congress first. Because a lot of them that are in there are only in there for one reason, to build up their profile and to line their pockets, and then to latch onto a donor base for as long as they can, which makes no sense to me if I'm being completely honest. How much money do you vampires that are still in those seats really need, especially when you have a golden parachute of a retirement, including your medical coverage? Let some younger folks come in, for God's sake. Fucking Mitch McConnell has stayed in until he's fallen so many times he doesn't even qualify as a weeble wobble anymore. This is insane to me. All of this is insane to me. We have at some point given over all of our authority to people that are supposed to be working for us, and then we defer to almost every fucking thing that they say over and over and over again. And I'm going to say this again. The only person that I know of that is actively fighting for me and you is the guy at the top of the ticket. Well, first term for sure, because Pence wasn't. I have to admit, finding out that Pence was okay with the Iranian conflict today kind of gave me pause. But then again, even a stop clock is right twice a day. But yeah, so I mean, as far as Trump, Vance, Rubio, and now hopefully Secretary of Homeland Security Mullen, should he be able to get approved, which I know everybody says that's going to be a hard sell. I'm not really sure. There's usually this whole thing with senators where they try not to be dicks to one another. So I don't think he'll get near unanimous like Rubio did, but I think he'll get through. That's just my opinion. Hell, I don't know. All of the rules and all this stuff have been turned on their heads, so I don't really even know anymore. But hey, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Sorry, I just realized I've had that up on the screen for forever. My bad. Yeah. Yeah, me too. I really was. Even BZ just put in the chat. Yeah, I too was really surprised by Pence. I didn't know dude had a backbone left, but hey, what do I know? All right. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do, well, actually, you know what? We're not going to do any of the normal commercial stuff because we're going to do something else instead. Because we are going into bottom of hour 1, top of hour 2. Next, we are going to do our military tribute. That is a bit long, so we're going to go straight into that, to the disclaimer, to the regular intro. But it is Friday, so normally I try to have a little bit more fun. Also want to make sure I give shout outs to all the appropriate folks. And hang on, I forgot what I was doing. I keep forgetting that I can actually load these things from inside now. And all right, again, this one's kind of long, so you have plenty of time to get up, stretch your legs, grab a drink, maybe smoke a little bit of whatever helps you think, unless you're at work. But then again, even if you are, I'm not your boss and I don't judge. My name is Rick Robinson. Hour 1 is in the books. Hour 2 still to come. See you in a few.
Before the oath was spoken out loud, before you stood apart from the crowd, there was a moment, quiet and clear, when you chose to stand while others stayed here. You raised your hand with a steady resolve, knowing some nights don't end when the mission's done. Not for glory, not for the pay, but for something worth more than walking away.
Only hold the line.
They carried the weight where the roads ran long, through dust and heat
When the days went on,
holding ground mile after mile, doing the work that rarely drew a smile. They stood their post when relief ran late, shoulders squared under the pull of fate.
not chasing headlines, not asking why, just staying put when others pass by. We stand and watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
We stand watch over the deep. They kept their watch where the water turns black, miles from shore with no quick way back, measuring time by the rise and the fall, answering duty's unrelenting call. Through silent hours and endless seas, they stood their post in the cold night breeze, guarding the lanes the world depends on, so others slept and the light stayed on. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to. Simplify, Marine.
We go where we're sent. We go where we're sent.
They moved as one when the moment came, side by side through fire and rain, First to step where the ground was thin, not for the odds, but for the ones beside them.
Trust was earned in the hard way through, every promise carried by the few. No turning back once the line was crossed.
They stood shoulder to shoulder as brothers,
Never counting the cost. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One oath spoken, carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
Air Force,
The sky is our domain.
Air Force.
The sky is our domain.
They held their focus where seconds seem eternal, soaring between clouds and blue. Every movement measured and true, knowing what one clean moment could do.
They watch the whole while guarding the small. Every mission tied to a larger call. Calm under pressure, steady and clear, keeping the promise from far overhead.
Space Force,
We guard the dark without
they
faith,
keep their vigil
where silence reigns
beyond the weather,
beyond the rain.
watching the paths that the world relies on long before the warning lights come on.
Cloud, no banners, no clear view,
Just constant care in a canvas full of stars,
standing the watch through the endless night, guarding the systems that keep us in light.
while the watch is kept and the lines hold fast. There are lives still moving on the other side of that.
Empty chairs and quiet phones, long goodbyes that don't feel done.
Names we carry but never say, folded flags and debts we pay. Every service, every scar reaches farther than the uniform ever could.
Coast Guard, we come when it matters most.
They launch into storms when hope feels thin. Turning back isn't an option then. Hands reach out where the waters rise, pulling lives back from the edge of time. No headlines waiting when the call is done, just breathing restored and another life won. Every rescue, every return, a quiet promise kept in the worst conditions.
We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One oath spoken, carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
For the ones who raised the right hand high,
Swore the oath and didn't ask us why.
for the nights you stood where freedom cost.
We remember, we honor, we won't forget the loss.
From the ground to the sea to the open sky, to the guardians above where the silent stars fly. Every branch, every badge, every battle scar, because you stood.
We live free.
Lord, each know
We stand here freely.
because others stood before us. We accept the weight of what was given and the cost that came with it. We promise to remember those who serve, those who stand watch still, and those who never came home.
Following program
like it's got a vendetta. Coffee tastes like bad decisions I ain't made yet. Boss man talking about we got her, and that means me, brother. Afraid I got a terminal case of the I don't want us. Mind checked out, heart ain't in the building. That second hand's crawling like it hates my guts. The man treating rest like it's a sin. Even God took a beat. So suck it. Thank God it's Friday, punching out loud. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill's still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and the bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait. It ain't owning me. So raise them up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know. HR in the break room sounding like a preacher, talking about culture, smiles, and being team players. Clipboard dreams on the fluorescent light, selling hours of my life just to make it to Friday night. Got dirt on my jeans, and grease on my hands, clock more over than quality plans. But when that bell rings, it's a holy sound. Feel like chains hit the floor when it echoes around. I ain't lazy, I just work my fill. If rest is a sin, guess I always will. Thank God it's Friday, punching out live. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill's still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait. It ain't on me. So raise them up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know. Boss can have Monday, God on Sunday, but Friday night's mine. I ain't giving it away. I earned this beer, I earned this pay, earned every sip I'm about to take. Thank God it's Friday, punching out alive. Hands in the air, middle finger to...
And welcome back into the finally Friday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. Live right here on KLRNradio.com, live on our X feed at KLRN Radio, live on our YouTube channel at KLRN Radio, live on my channel, Rowdy Rick Robinson. Also live on Facebook, on both my personal Facebook as well as the station Facebook. So we're pretty much everywhere. Go find us wherever you're most comfortable and hang out and chat, and we will enjoy the company. Now, of course, as we have to do now. First, I know I already said this in the chat, but I want to say thank you again to BZ. Hey, I'm not sure how I should take that. Are you saying most of Oklahoma's dead? I'm just teasing. Anyway, that's a pretty good line. I think I may actually borrow that when I start doing local promotions, because I'm working on that probably in the next 6 months or so. Anyway, so we got to get back into the topics. Now, we're going to come back around to Kristi Noem in a little bit, because there's some weirdness going on there. But first, we got to talk about this, because I have to admit, even I, as someone who does a conspiratainment show every 2 weeks, I had questions when we decided to start a Space Force out of the blue. And of course, the left started having all kinds of fun with the concept of a Space Force. But I have to say, I think Trump might have been onto something. I still think there might be some SG1 style shenanigans going on somewhere, but yeah, until we get confirmation of that, we got to talk about this, because this is from Jesse Waters. I believe it was last night, talking about the Dems and how their instincts are always wrong, and then he highlights the specific thing of Space Force.
Space Force was a joke.
No one asks how we're going to pay for this Space Force.
There's no threat in space. Who are we fighting? Satellites? When Trump talks about Space Force, he makes it sound like we're going to be on a rocket riding to the moon, like Space Force, riding up there and killing aliens.
Joke's on them. Space Force is a critical mission right now. They deployed heat-seeking infrared beams that detect missiles the second they launch so that our guys can take shelter when the rockets get neutralized. Space Force is working on U.S. soil, so they're out of harm's way. Thank God. Operation Space Force was a joke.
No one asks how we're going to pay for.
So yeah, the left, when Donald Trump suggested the idea of a Space Force, turned it into a joke, turned it into a farce. The interesting thing is, Space Force has been one of the reasons we have been able to make such quick, light work of these folks, because they do a bang-up job of hiding their missiles until they fire. And now, because of Space Force, because of satellite technology, because of infrared sensors and everything else, we can find them basically the moment they fire, then target in and neutralize them, in some cases before they ever get anywhere near their intended targets. Another thing that I found absolutely amazing was finding out that Space Force has lasers. Did anybody else not know that Space Force had lasers? Because I didn't know until last night. And I saw a picture of a Helios laser being used live in real time. I'm like, this is so awesome. Anyway, I was just as weirdly, and this was several years ago, when I found out that we actually had railguns, which, you know, for those of you who play sci-fi games like Eve, you know, railguns sound really, really futuristic. So when I found out we had them, I was like, we have what now? Anyway. All right. So see, BZ, that is a really good question. I'm going to put that up on the big screen because, dude, I was a big Stid fan in the beginning. As a matter of fact, one of my first high-profile interviews I ever did locally was him on KOKC radio. And of course, I offered the Democrats the same amount of airtime because legally you're required to. Then you have to provide proof that they either accepted or didn't. But here's the thing. He's come out on the wrong side of so many things lately. I wouldn't be surprised if he appointed a Democrat just to piss Trump off. So I know why Trump has made the decision that he's made. He thinks it's a safe bet. And, you know, also, for those of you who don't know, there's some, which is one of the reasons why I'm kind of like, I think he's going to be good in the role, but at the same time, I don't really know, because apparently he's been part of the ethics probe when it comes to insider trading. I mean, dude was already fairly rich when he got there, so I don't really know if that would have made much of a difference. But yeah, so I don't know. I have concerns about Stitt appointing a replacement. Now, granted, it will be a short-lived replacement because his term was up in November anyway. Governor will have 30 days to appoint a replacement once Mullen vacates the seat, which if he's smart, he won't do until he's confirmed. But I don't really know how the rules on that stuff work. But in the event Mullen is able to be confirmed, because again, I think it will be skin of the teeth, but I think he will get confirmed because Fetterman's already said he's voting for. So I'm sure a few other Democrats probably will as well, just to not break protocol and look like a bunch of ass clowns in front of fellow senators. But I don't think it'll be anywhere near what Rubio got. But as far as what Stitt does, as far as the replacement, dude, he's on the way out the door. So it's literally a grab bag. He could do everything from appoint a squish Republican to appoint a Democrat just to piss Trump off, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did either one. But yeah, no, BZ, I am actually really concerned that he might actually do just that. But yeah, Anyway, yeah, I actually have concerns that he might decide just to, because you got to remember there's been some public spatting going on between Stitt and Trump, and Stitt's on the way out the door. And we all know how people get when they start publicly spatting with Trump. The TDS sets in really, really quickly. So I have concerns. I have concerns, but we'll see. Like I said, there's just as likely of a chance that I could be completely wrong and Mullen won't pass muster for the Senate, because let's face it, the Senate just voted to keep the government closed again. I think we've talked about this already, but I'm going to bring it back up again because the House actually did their job and tried to reopen the government. The Senate, which last I checked was still controlled by mostly Republicans, failed. With Republicans like that, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? All right, so we got to talk about some of the election stuff. Of course, Crockett is out. La, bye-bye, bye-bye. Have fun working at Hooters. However, the person that beat out Crockett might actually be even worse than her, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for Republicans in Texas to get off their hands and do something, I don't really know. But the funny thing is, the left keeps saying that we're trying to make Tallarico look bad. This is the right. They're doing everything they can to make him look bad, and he's not bad. He's really not. Okay, so I'm not even going to say anything. We're just going to play this, and then you guys decide.
They're going to throw everything they have at us. They're going to call me a radical leftist.
Well, you said it, pal, not me.
God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
What?
Before we go further, I want to acknowledge that our trans community needs abortion care too.
Well, how does that even work?
Did they teach you in Sunday school that Jesus Christ himself was a radical feminist?
So stupid.
I've said that I think our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front and a lock on the door.
What the fuck does that even mean?
Poverty is violence. Pollution is violence. And yes, prison is violence.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
I just don't know how you go out to the Texas electorate and run when you hate white people so much. He clearly hates white people. James Tallarico is saying that white men are a virus, that his whiteness is a virus that is contagious to other people. He goes on and says that white men are the biggest threat to the entire nation, that white men are the single biggest problem in all of America.
It's only steers and queers come from Texas, and you don't much look like a steer to me, so that kind of narrows it down.
All right, so that segment was brought to us by our friends over at buffoonoftheweek.com. That was actually their take on some of the things that Tallarico has said over the years. Now, before we move on from this, do want to give them a plug real quick. They do air with us every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, also available on their YouTube channel. For those of you who are interested in doing so, you can, let me find it, check out Gene's book right here, Snooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to political buffoonery. $17.99 for paperback. I think they still have it on special for those of you with a Kindle for like, I think it's either 99 cents or $1.99. So you don't necessarily have to pay full ticket price. I have the paperback version though, because I like paper books. I've tried the Kindle thing. It's not the same. And it's weird for me to admit, right? Because you guys know me. I'm a big sci-fi dude. So I was always like, dude, it'll be so awesome when we have pads like they have on the Next Generation and all our stuff can be right there. And I have 2 tablets I use for almost nothing unless I'm doing roving reporting stuff. Because it just, it bugs me. It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same. Anyway, so again, want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out with us so far today. We have plenty of things still to talk about, but some of the really important stuff I'm going to save for the 3 o'clock hour with my friends while we do the weekend news roundup. Or at least more in-depth anyway. So here is... Here's an interesting story. Speaking of weekend news roundup, I'm sure Amy will probably have this one that she wants to bring up during that show, but we'll talk about it here for a moment as well. Because Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard is apparently so broken that they're currently humiliating themselves to hide from U.S. forces. So let's take a look. For many years, there was a popular rumor that J. Bruce Ismay, chairman of the White Star Line, disguised himself as a woman to get a seat on a lifeboat off the doomed Titanic. It was disproven after investigations into the sinking, but that's because it actually wasn't even the Titanic. It was their sister ship. Oh, wait, never mind. For more on that, you can always go check out the Juxtaposition archives, though. But history needed a villain to blame for the maritime disaster. The story popped into this writer's mind when she saw these images reportedly of a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps dressing like a woman to try and escape the U.S.-Israeli strikes that have obliterated Iran's political and military leadership. I'm so sorry, sir. It was on my fruiting. Anyway, the IRGC leaders in Iran now are wearing hijab to hide from American Israeli surveillance. You want to know how broken a military coup is? When you have them pulling off the Iranian version of Mrs. Doubtfire. That's how you know you're really winning. All right, so one of the other things that I have absolutely loved about all of this, and I mean loved in the non-ironical sense, is watching all of the Iranians who are absolutely owning the left for their positions on Operation Epic Fury. There is a very good clip of one of those moments that runs for about 1 minute and 40 seconds. Then we're going to take a break, and then we'll keep going. But we got to talk about this. So hang on. Never mind. I lost track of where I was. All right, let me get that off the screen. All right, and push the button, Frank. Of course, you're going to be dumb now. All right, one moment, please. One of these days, I'm just going to remember to pull all these things up in advance from the actual source, so I don't have to keep sitting here. All right, now let me make sure we can see it, and then I got to make sure you guys can hear it because I had to change on the fly.
2 days ago, yesterday, this morning, I was told we were not at war. Today in the press conference, PKXF says, end the war. Are we at war? Are we not at war? Do we want regime change or do we not?
The president told the Iranian people in his very first
moment.
You know, I know this may sound controversial, and among my friends, some of them is controversial.
That's okay.
But I think that a lot of commentary is missing, perhaps, the big picture.
I agree.
And there is a big picture here, and perhaps to simplify it, I would put it this way. I don't think it's right to say that President Trump has started a war with Iran. I think President Trump wants to finish a war that Iran started in 1979, 47 years ago. And these aren't just words. Let me just tell you an anecdote. In the 2003, 2004, when I was there in Iran working on projects at a very high level, I was talking with deputy ministers, I was talking with, going back and forth, and I was in the foreign ministry in Tehran, where I met someone who was very senior, and he was semi-sympathetic with the projects we were doing. But as I was leaving, he looked me in the eye, and he said, you as an Iranian American, I want you to know something and listen very carefully. He said, we in this building, and what he meant is the foreign ministry, which meant representing the government, which means representing the regime. He said, we believe we are at war with the United States. He said at that time, it's a Cold War, but it's a war nonetheless. This was a warning time.
I'll just remind you all, Trump called it a war.
I think it's inevitable.
And of course, the panel dissolves into absolute hysteria because how dare you say the quiet part out loud? How dare you make sure that people that are watching this channel understand that as far as Iran is concerned, they've been at war with us for 47 years in various temperature stages. Because, yeah. Let's see. Let's take the break real quick. Then when we come back, we do have some fun stuff. And that's all I'm going to say. But we do have some fun stuff. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to play for the break. Hang on. I think I know. All right, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
He swore an oath to make a difference, ran for danger while others turned away. Now it seems the world's against him, and no one knows quite what to say. Live the life and follow the path forged in fire, burning bright through the darkest night. Though the world may turn its back on him, he still stands. Won't lose the fight. He walked through fire with no applause, carried burdens that nobody saw, judgmental words and glares that wound. A price has been paid that few can understand. Live the life and follow the path forged in fire, burning bright through the darkest night. Though the world may turn its back on him, he still stands. Won't lose the fight. Maybe strength wasn't armored war. Maybe it was the truth they chose to endure. When the world turned cold and he felt some more, he still rose, still carried on. Live the life and follow the path forged in fire, burning bright through the darkest night. Though the world may turn its back on him, he still
And welcome back into the final segment of the It's Finally Friday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. I want to welcome everybody who's been hanging out from the newest Facebook feed that we've just added, as well as the newest YouTube channel. I want to thank those of you that have been watching on YouTube for behaving yourselves. Normally when we get noticed on YouTube, people get retarded. So want to thank you for not being retarded today, because it saved my band finger. Because, yeah, I do believe in free speech. Unless you're retarded, then you can go use your free speech elsewhere. Because just because you have the right to say it doesn't mean I have to read it. All right, so we're here. We're live. And yes, BZ made an excellent point on the way out to break. I just couldn't really comment on it until now. Democrats chose to basically attack and ignore the dude who was actually in Iran, hearing from the people that, are part of the regime, that... Yeah, that's not true. That's not true. But here's something that I think we need to talk about as well, because here's something else that's not true. Remember when we snatched Maduro in his Snuggie, and the left had a cow and said that we were pushing ourselves into World War III? Very interesting thing happened. I think it was yesterday. But yeah, so. You should be seeing it on the screen just about now. And here we go. Oh, man. See, I was testing something. Because I've noticed on the portrait side, if I play a video, it actually lets me hit play from in there. So I was wondering if it would do that with the clips too, and it did not. So anyway, it was worth a shot.
La reunión escribió un post, saludando lo que es esta agenda de trabajo entre el gobierno de los Estados Unidos y el gobierno de Venezuela. Como lo habíamos mencionado y resaltado, el gobierno de Venezuela está a la disposición para, a través de los canales de cooperación, abordar agendas concretas que beneficien tanto al pueblo de los Estados Unidos como al pueblo de Venezuela. El secretario también ha venido acompañado de una nutrida e importante representación empresarial. Quiero igualmente agradecer al presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump.
All right, so let me translate that, because this sent a lot of the leftists into a tizzy when they got the translation. Because, as you can see, that's Bergam hanging out in Venezuela. And for those of you who don't speak the language, it is a derivative of Spanish, so I was able to understand a lot of it, because it's actually... It's one of those dialect-y kind of things, so it's not full-on like Castilian Spanish, but there's enough there that I was able to understand it. So basically what she says is, thanks to this man, and thanks to President Trump, we're in the process of building a good relationship for Venezuela and for the United States of America, and we are reopening diplomatic communication. Which freaked the left out, because they have been wrong. Look, the thing that eventually turned me around on Trump, and it's funny because it was kind of one of those things where I just wasn't sure about any of it, was this. Dude is basically, even if you think he doesn't have a fucking clue what he's doing, that makes him basically the Leslie Nielsen of presidents, because dude can back into something sideways and still manage to figure out a way to make it work. And that's exactly what happened in Venezuela. Now, the Venezuela operation going as well as it did has led to some interesting things. Like, I didn't know about this until the other day. But after Ukraine watched us snatch Maduro in a Snuggie, apparently the stand-up comic turned politician was on the phone with Donald Trump saying, hey, can you go do that to Putin now? You think you could pull that off with Putin? Which I gotta say, if we could fucking Marco Polo Putin, that would be amazing. I'm just saying. Anyway, it's not gonna happen. Not because we don't want to, and not because Trump is Putin's puppet, but because reasons. But I still found the fact that they even asked was kind of amazing to me. All right, so before we get into the fun stuff, we do have to talk about this, because this is some of the stuff that is honestly kind of astounding to me, because I will freely admit I bought into a lot of the Iranian regime's BS when it came to how their people felt about us. But this says the exact opposite, and I'm just going to play this, then we'll talk about it.
it faithfully knows, hath concealed, hath disclosed them. Now it catches the gleam of a morning's first beam. In full glory reflected, now shines on the stream. 'Tis the stars and the banner, oh, long may it wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
All right, so for those of you who weren't sure what we were watching there, I'll be explaining in a moment. But that was Iranians in London gathered outside of the U.S. Embassy to pay respect to the fallen American soldiers. People that I was told hated us. People that at one point I believed, the majority of which actually hated us. And they're doing this in a foreign country's embassy? I mean, I could see it being a publicity stunt if it was happening here. But happening in London, and what has become London Stan, to me, that adds an entirely new layer to it, because these people were pretty much risking their lives, if not while standing on embassy ground, while both going to and coming from. And they chose to do this anyway. This has been the part of this that I never saw coming, and I've played several clips this week to illustrate this point, like the Iranians standing on rooftops, watching the infrastructure of the regime get bombed and laughing giddily while it's happening. And somebody pointed out that they thought it was crazy that they were laughing while their country was being bombed. And they're like, no, you do not understand. Iran is not being bombed. The regime is being bombed, because they can and do separate the two. And they should. Because they should. Now here's another one. I'm gonna try to get through as many of these as I can in the last few minutes. I don't know if I'll have time to play them all, but I thought this was another one that was really interesting.
Mr. President Trump, I'm an Iranian girl, but I live in Germany. But I will say thanks, President Trump, for helping the Iranian people. Hi, Mr.
All right, so there you have an Iranian child living in Germany saying thank you to President Trump for helping to free her people. PC, you have a point. You have a point, my friend. The Muslim countries that actually hate us are, in no particular order, Spain, the UK, France, and members of the EU. Dude, so I'm glad you brought that up, because I really wanted to talk about that today, because the mental gymnastics of folks like Captain Stubing, aka Bill Kristol, are astounding to me, because just in January, dude was screaming and yelling about how President Trump should be doing something about the 30,000+ people that were being slaughtered in Iran. It may have taken him a while to get it set up, but he's doing something about it. But now that he's doing something about it, Bill Kristol don't want nothing to do with it anymore. So this is why anybody who's constantly against Trump, no matter what, even if it causes them to take a different position on a stance that they held just a couple months ago, yeah, this is why I don't trust these people. All right, so we got to get into this. Well, actually, I think I had at least one more clip that I wanted to play before I do that. So hang on. And then we got to get into one of the last stories. So this is, there are other fun ones that I was going to try to play, but I think this one might be more important because talk about somebody who's kind of found his brain and his spine again once he got out from underneath Oprah's thumb. This is an interesting clip to me because Dr. Phil has been kind of on it lately, especially now that he's off on his own and started his own network, and not gone the way of Tucker Carlson, who I refuse to give any airtime to other than to point and laugh and say, fucking silver spoon PMS now, bitch.
Tell us the damn truth or don't tell us anything at all. This is a war of good versus evil, a regime that funds and arms terrorist proxies across the Middle East. How long has this been going on? Well, Reagan administration, the Bush administration, George H. Bush, Clinton's administrations, George W. Bush, Obama, Trump 1, Biden, Trump 2. That's how long this guy's been doing what he's been doing. A network of more than a dozen militia and proxy groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and militias in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Iran's Revolutionary Guard. These are groups they fund, train, and provide weapons to. U.S. officials have long stated that Iran provides financial and military support to Hamas, backing the October 7th attack on Israel, a regime that has imprisoned, tortured, and executed political dissidents. A UN report found that Iran executed at least 975 people in 2024. That's one of the highest totals globally. We are being misled by the media because it only wants you to believe what they want you to believe.
Well, so yeah, back to that in a second, because that's actually my closing thought for the show, BZ. Because there's another connection that a lot of folks may not know that is actually starting to come back on even folks like Massey regarding what's happening with Owens and Carlson. But I wanted to talk about this first, because if I expected anyone to ever be saying some of the stuff that maybe Tucker Carlson is saying, no, it would have been Dr. Phil because of his close relationship with Oprah. Because let's face it, Oprah is one of those people. Remember, in the late 80s, early 90s, she was all on board with, if you ever decide to run, remember me for vice president. And then he changed the letter behind his name and suddenly she hated him. So because of that close association, I have to admit I may have, been a little too harsh on Dr. Phil for a while. But I think he does a really good job of pointing out, this is how long this has been going on. These are the different groups that we know they fund. This is how long we've known that they funded these groups. So if you're not going to tell us the truth about what's happening in Iran and the real reasons why it's happening, just shut up. Because you're becoming part of the problem, not part of the solution. But as far as what's happening with Carlson and Owens, and now, of course, Massey, I don't know if you guys saw it yesterday, but apparently there's been some dot connecting regarding the funding for campaigns and stuff regarding Mr. Massey. I thought I bookmarked it, but maybe I didn't. But I think I still know where to find it, so hang on. She posts a lot, so there's no guarantee I'm going to find it anytime quickly. But I'm going to look real quick anyway. So while I'm looking, look, the thing, and this is again one of the things that has driven me the most crazy about Massey, was just his overall just crazy stance on a lot of things. But so what we're finding out, though, and this is actually, I'm about to put it on the screen, is some of the same groups that are funding Carlson and Owens are apparently contributing donations to Massey's campaign. So could this be another reason why he has been so staunchly opposed to all of this? Look at some of these names. Raneem Marouk on 9/25/2025, $7,000. Mohammed Marouk, $7,000. 9/25/2025. Sam Marouk, 8/11/2025, $7,000. Zaid Marouk, $7,000, 9/25/2025. It always comes back to the money. It always comes back to the money. Carlson is being funded by Qatar. And up until recently, Qatar was basically a money laundering facility for Iran. Now that Iran's throwing missiles at them, I think they've maybe learned from their mistakes. But I guess we'll never really know until we find out if they're going to do anything about it. Yes. You are exactly right, BZ. These are some of the same names that came out when people started investigating funding with Abbott, which I have to admit was a disappointment for me. I liked Abbott. I still like Abbott, but the fact that, I mean, there's no way you can't say that he's not selling out the state of Texas when all these mosques are popping up all over the place. And I know some people, you're such a racist. You know what? I don't care. And don't call me Islamophobic either, because you guys forget what the suffix phobia means. It's an irrational fear. I have a perfectly rational fear of Islam because they want us dead. They've been telling us they've wanted us dead since the 50s. Everybody forgets about one of the very earliest phrases that had ever made it to our shores regarding Islamists in the modern era was first the Saturday people, meaning Israel, then the Sunday people, meaning us. And everybody seems to forget that part. But I think it's because they don't want to face it, because they don't like the fact that we're not liked. For some reason, we, especially on the left, have this indomitable need to be liked at first, and then once they are liked, they do everything they can to get and keep you under thumb. And it's crazy to think about. All right. So remember earlier when I talked about everybody on the left screaming and yelling about how we committed a war crime because we sunk the ship and the submarine didn't do anything about it. Well, here's an actual, person who would know whether this was an official war crime or not. Who was invited onto they say ABC, but I think it might have actually been the Australian Broadcasting Company because I don't recognize that set. But anyway, here's an interesting point. Ready? Here we go.
Don Rothwell is Professor of International Law at ANU with a specific focus on the law of the sea. Don Rothwell, welcome.
Thank you.
So what was your initial reaction to the sinking of the Iranian warship off the coast of Sri Lanka?
Really quite surprised, because this is a significant escalation by the United States in terms of the area of combat operations extending well into the Indian Ocean and quite some considerable distance from where we've seen the conflict really being centred at the moment in the Middle East.
So the US Secretary of Defense and War, Pete Hegseth, in announcing the news of the sinking, said the Iranian warship, quote, thought it was safe in international waters. Should it have been?
Look, I think we need to make it quite clear here that given that we have an armed conflict at the moment between the United States and Iran, any member of the Iranian military is a legitimate combatant. And as a legitimate combatant, they become a legitimate target for the United States in most settings. So the fact that the Iranian warship was, as I said, in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Sri Lanka at some considerable distance from the major area of combat operations really gives it no immunity under those settings.
So it was still breaking international law in taking this action?
No, what I'm saying is that the United States did have a right as a combatant to be able to target the Iranian warship, even though it was in international waters in the Indian Ocean off the Sri Lankan coast. So there's no real issue there in terms of international humanitarian law and the legitimacy of the US targeting of this vessel. But as I'm saying, on the basis of the evidence that I see before it at the moment, there's no real issue about this actual strike on this Iranian naval vessel.
So should we be concerned in Australia that the US-Iranian conflict could come to our waters if indeed an Iranian warship does come close to our shores?
Well, look, I think that's fairly unlikely in terms of, at the moment, Iranian warships being off the coast of Australia or even close to Australia. But I think what this does highlight is the potential for escalation of the conflict. We've heard also overnight reports of Iranian missiles perhaps overflying Turkey, and now we've got this US missile submarine strike in the Indian Ocean. That certainly indicates that the area of intense military operations and conflict that we're seeing centered around Israel, Iran, and adjacent Middle Eastern states is certainly capable of being extended into much wider waters. And that's, I think, the grave concern for certainly the Australian government at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, so yes, I was right. It was the Australian Broadcasting Company. But she wanted so much for him to say that, yes, this was a war crime. It's not. Well, that's from Australia, though, too. So, yeah. I mean, might as well put Australia on one of the Muslim countries listed at this point, I think. All right, so let's see if we have any other breaking news. I saw something about a potential airbase strike, but I haven't really been able to find it from any reputable sources. So this is from Ward Clark. Looks like Russia's getting a little feisty. According to most recent reports, Russia is now giving Iran targeting data on U.S. warships and aircraft. So far, other than some pro forma protest, Russia hasn't dipped their oar into the ongoing efforts to dismantle the theocratic regime in Iran. On Friday, however, reports have surfaced that Russia may be providing the Iranian regime, what's left of it anyway, with targeting data, allowing the Iranians to more accurately target American ships and aircraft. If this is true, this is a significant change in Russian involvement. And I quote, Russia is providing Iran with targeting information to attack American forces in the Middle East, the first indication that another major U.S. adversary is participating, even indirectly, in the war, according to 3 officials familiar with the intelligence. The assistance, which has not been previously reported, signals that the rapidly expanding conflict now features one of America's chief nuclear-armed competitors with their very own form of exquisite intelligence capabilities. Since the war began Saturday, Russia has passed Iran the locations of U.S. military assets, including warships and aircraft, said the 3 officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity because of the matter's sensitivity. So, well, first of all, since they're only willing to speak anonymously, I'm going to say that a little skepticism is likely in order here. Because while Russia has long been an Iranian ally, there has been no previous information of this kind of intelligence sharing. It would be a major diplomatic brouhaha with the United States if Russia were in fact caught doing this. It would also seem to be a losing move for Russia. So I don't really know if I agree with the assessment of these supposed anonymous sources or not. But believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of our time together. So again, want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at SHR Media. Make sure you are checking out Sean Lewis, Reaver of Common Sense, otherwise known as Jersey Joe, my good friend BZ, who's in the chat right now, Mission Ready Men, Big Earl with the Mission Ready Men briefing, and also the new guy, Beer and Bullstein. I think he has a show tonight, actually, and I think it may end about the time that, or I think it may begin about the same time that me and Aggie end. I need to look at their schedule. But even if you come hang out with me and Aggie and then watch the replay later, I'm completely cool with that. All right. We're going to get out of here because I have an hour lunch break before I have to come back with the weekend news roundup. Should have Amy Curtis, Brad Slager, and still trying to nail down who the SHR participant is going to be based on some scheduling changes. But once I know, you will know, and I'm going to get out of here. Please enjoy the rest of your Friday. And because even though they don't have the terror alert levels anymore, I'm pretty sure we would probably be on an orange right now. So keep your head on a swivel, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much to everybody who took the time to hang out with us today. The YouTube numbers take a while to come in, but I did see a few poking in here and there, so I won't know for sure for an hour or so where we actually landed there. For a very little promoted show, we did break over almost 200 on X, though. So anyway, we're going to get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. And thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And I'll be back in a little bit. I'm going to stop talking now so I can go eat. Say goodnight, Gracie.